The day a range officer started walking toward me in silence, I realized I'd finally pushed a pistol too far. I wasn't watching from the sidelines. My hands were on the gun, my name was on the line, and every person on that bay went quiet, waiting to see if this thing was smart, stupid, or both. These are the pistols from that side of my safe. The ones that felt like bad ideas until they proved something, or scared me enough that I stopped trusting normal guns for a while. Odd calibers, backwards controls, toy-looking frames that somehow chewed through drills. The serious pistols choked on. One of these caused that walk from the RO. And the worst part is, I still shoot that pistol. Another one kept slipping into my waistband even though I knew better. We start at the mild end of crazy, and it only gets rougher from there. The PX4 Storm had been sitting in my life longer than I wanted to admit. I grabbed it off a discount rack because I've got a stupid soft spot for odd Berettas, then left it in the safe, like a sci-fi prop. When it was time to pick a serious pistol, I slid right past it. It felt like a joke I'd told myself with a credit card. Last year, I finally dragged it to a pistol class. Timer, draw, cover, reloads. No mercy, no range toy excuses. In the middle of a hard string, the slide did that twisting snap it's famous for. And my brain threw up one frame of parts, peeling off in front of my face. Nothing happened, but my grip clamped down. I started muscling it like a science project that might come apart if I relaxed. The targets didn't care. Hits stacked. The clock was fine, and my wrists never unclenched. The gun behaved like a normal pistol, while my head kept whispering it had slipped out of some Beretta lab. I still own it. I still shoot it. And I still don't know if it belongs with the serious guns or in the drawer where the mistakes live. Some guns tried to look sharp. The HK USP just sat there like a concrete block with a muzzle. It never felt like a carry piece. It felt like something an armory handed out when they expected the day to go bad. I stalled on buying one because it looked like too much gun for the problems I actually had. Once it finally landed in my hands, I treated it like it offended me. Cheap ammo, bad ammo, no fresh lube. Drills at the end of the day when my grip already hurt. The slide felt like a steel door on rails. And every time I thought, okay, that string had to bother it, the gun just kept cycling like it hadn't noticed. The crazy part showed up in my head, not on the target. I started inventing ways to break it. One-handed, offhand, awkward cover, borderline limp-wristed nonsense. The USP stayed boring, and I was the one who finally backed off. I shot it well, but every time I strapped it on, it felt like I was gearing up for a night that never came. That is the USP for me. A pistol so overbuilt, it stopped being sensible and slipped straight into crazy overkill territory. I had the Bodyguard 2.0 jammed in my pocket last year, one October night. No belt, no real holster, just this flat little rectangle of metal and polymer riding next to my truck key. Every step, it printed more like a phone than a pistol. The grip barely gave my ring finger anything to hold. I knew all of that already from shooting it. Short sight radius, long pull. The muzzle jumping higher than you'd expect from something that small. Standing at the pumps, I wrapped my hand around it inside the pocket and felt how little gun there actually was. 2 fingers on the grip, skinny frame, not much weight to soak up anything. It suddenly felt like I'd brought half a pistol to a full-speed problem. Inside the gas station, some guy wandered too close behind me in the aisle, and my brain did the math. Tiny grip, tiny sights, a handful of rounds, and fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. No malfunction, no drama. Just me, a wallet, and a backup gun, pretending to be a main gun. I walked back to the truck, thinking if something had gone bad in there, that little gun might have got me killed. That night made me stop asking if the Bodyguard worked and start asking why I ever let it be enough. The CZ Shadow, too compact, turned into the closest thing to a legal cheat code I'd ever shoved in a holster. On days I felt slow or rusty, That was the gun I grabbed when I wanted the timer to stop making fun of me. It didn't look goofy or loud, just like a compact that grew up hanging around match shooters instead of normal people. The problem finally showed up on a standards run earlier this year. Timer out, tight part-time, hardcover, no shoots. With the Shadow 2 compact, the sights barely lifted. Splits dropped, but transitions felt like they were happening on rails. And somewhere in the middle of that string, I stopped thinking about anything except beating the beep. The run ended with one round kissing a no-shoot and another sitting deeper in hard cover than I wanted to admit. The instructor didn't yell. He just said that run didn't count. That was the crazy part. The gun hadn't failed at all. It had pushed me straight past my own standards and left me standing there trying to act like I meant to do it. The Shadow 2 compact became the pistol I put back when I needed discipline, and the one I reached for when I wanted to see what broke first. The next gun on this list didn't just wreck my standards, it went after my comfort zone. One Saturday in October last year, I decided to prove the Walther PDP SF-Match could be a real carry gun. Steel frame, match barrel, slide cuts, and I still stuffed it under a t-shirt like I was sneaking a trophy out of the match. The first hour felt fine. Holster, heavy belt, sweatshirt, weather. Then the day started stacking dumb situations. Drive with the gun wedged between seat and hip, bending over in a gas station with the grip trying its best to print through cotton. Hug from a friend who patted into a block of steel and raised an eyebrow. Every time I shifted, the pistol reminded me it was built for stages, not snack runs. By the afternoon, my lower back ached, and my brain was doing threat assessments on chairs, door frames, and strangers' eyes instead of anything important. When I finally hit the range that evening, the gun shot like a dream, and my patience was gone. I unloaded, holstered, and knew this thing belonged in a range bag, not on a grocery list. The PDP SF-Match still lives here, but it rides in with targets and ammo. Number 5 is the pistol that tried to ride in on nerves alone. The Taurus G3C was the wild card on this list from day one. Everything else here had match pedigrees or strange engineering. This thing walked in off the budget shelf with a short grip, rough edges, and a price tag that looked like a misprint, and still managed to sneak into my rotation. Last summer, an indoor session finally scraped the shine off that idea. Normal lane, normal ammo, nothing special going on. Halfway through a string, the trigger went dead, and the slide froze on a live round like it had decided we were done. I locked it open, cleared it, and felt that quiet little punch you get when suspicion finally stands up and races its hand. The gun went back together and finished the box. My trust didn't. What made the G3C feel crazy wasn't drama, it was how ordinary it looked, how many of them I kept seeing in holsters and truck consoles, and how fast my own confidence disappeared the moment it locked up. I never rushed home and posted a warning. I just stopped volunteering to stand behind it when someone asked if a cheap little pistol could pull serious duty, and that silence has bothered me more than the jam ever did. Years ago, I saw the Masada on a table for the first time. My buddy Jeet had his pistols spread across the farmhouse porch, and this one sat there looking like it did not know who built it. Grip angle, whispering, Glock. Slide trying to be something else. Controls borrowed from a third gun. A part spin experiment that somehow slipped past inspection. I picked it up expecting to smirk and put it back. It felt too light and too familiar in all the wrong ways. When we stepped out to his little range behind the trees, I loaded it just to see where it would fall apart. It never did. Recoil came straight back and settled. Sights stayed flat. Trigger broke cleaner than some of the serious pistols I'd driven 2 hours to buy. String after string, the Masada behaved like a duty gun wearing a fake name tag. Standing there in the heat, I caught myself getting irritated at how well it ran. If the cheap, borrowed face kid could hang with the purebreds, maybe the bloodlines I'd been bragging about were just stories. And the uncomfortable part was knowing the pistol, sitting higher on this list, did not just poke at my receipts, it went after my comfort zone. This was the first pistol that made me step back and check the berm twice. Before I pressed the trigger on a 5.7, people had opinions. Too fast. Too much penetration. Fun range toy. Terrible idea indoors. I heard every warning and still loaded it because stubborn curiosity has always been louder than good advice. The weird part started with the first magazine. Recoil felt almost lazy, but the blast snapped hard in my teeth. The slide barely moved, sights drifted instead of jumping, and the holes in the target looked sharper than they had any right to. Every time I reset the trigger, I caught myself looking past the paper at whatever sat behind it. Nothing went wrong mechanically. No jams, no light strikes, no drama from the gun. The unease sat in my stomach instead of my hands. I kept running the strings and realized I had started double-checking angles I never worried about with 9mm. Corners of the backstop, edges of steel, even the wall between lanes felt thinner. Plenty of pistols had kicked harder or barked louder. The 5.7 was the first one that made me wonder if I was the sketchy part of the equation, not the gun. Out of every pistol I owned, the only time a range officer started walking toward me in silence, it was my own friend, wearing the orange vest, and I was holding a Glock 43. I had turned a tiny carry gun into a dare. Short grip, aftermarket trigger, extended mag full of real carry ammo. It rode inside the waistband like a backup and came out of the holster like a match gun. My brain kept saying, if I can run this at full speed, I never feel undergunned again. And I listened. Hot afternoon, outdoor line, timer on my belt. I drove that 43 through a fast string, muzzle snapping higher each shot while I chased the beep instead of the sights. Somewhere in the middle of it, I caught my buddy in my peripheral vision. Walking down the line without saying a word, he stopped next to me, looked at the pistol, then at the plates. "You're right on the edge with that thing," he said quietly. The gun had stayed inside the berm. He just didn't like the way I was using it. I holstered and stepped off that drill. The Glock 43 still rides with me, but every time I load it, I remember my friend walking toward me like I was the unsafe part, not the gun. You've seen the pistol that made the range officer start walking, and the rest of the junkyard geniuses that earned a spot on this list. I wasn't grading these from a distance. I paid for the ammo, took the hits to my wrists, and stood there when a couple of them felt one bad primer away from turning me into a cautionary story. Some of these crazy guns earned my trust anyway. Others got pushed so hard they're never leaving the safe again unless somebody needs a lesson in what not to do. If your carry gun looks wilder than anything here, you're not running a personality piece, you're running an experiment. Tell me which of these you'd actually strap on and which one you wouldn't fire, even if I brought the ammo. I'm Steve! See you in the next video.